Have you ever seen the eyes of a child, both hungry and pitiful? Today, Jack and Tien went to a remote village, where skinny children sat in line silently, just waiting for a meal. And then, Jack collapsed, not because he was tired, but because he was too heartbroken by the harsh truth. Watch this video until the end. And if you shed tears, you are not alone. Before the sun rose, Tien had already woken up at 4 a.m. She quietly washed rice, cut vegetables, and prepared each ingredient. Outside, Jack was loading rice, instant noodles, milk, and pots and pans into the truck. Each box was carefully wrapped in canvas, tied tightly with rope, because they knew the road to the village would be bumpy, steep, and dangerous. I just hope the kids have something to eat, Tien whispered as she wiped the sweat from her forehead. The pickup truck started rolling at 5:15 a.m. The road leading to the village was not easy to travel, potholes, landslides, a deep abyss on one side, and a steep cliff on the other. Jack had to drive very carefully, and at many points he had to get out of the truck to clear the dirt and rocks for the truck to pass. On the truck, Tien, Jack's mother, and Uncle Hung went together. Everyone was silent. No one said a word. They had heard people talk about this place. There were children who only ate one meal a day. There were children as young as 6 who had to go through the forest to pick wild vegetables to eat. Some days they only drank stream water to make ends meet. Near noon, they arrived at the village. No trumpets, no drums, no one waiting, just a few small eyes peeking from behind the rickety walls. And then, the children began to come out, timidly, barehanded and barefooted, their dark eyes filled with anticipation. Tien choked when she saw a little girl so skinny that her arms were just skin and bones, hugging her sleeping little brother tightly in her arms. Jack said nothing. He put the pot of water on the charcoal stove, his hands shaking with anger, with love, with helplessness. When he turned back, he saw the children lining up, not jostling, not crying, just waiting. No one spoke. There was only the sound of firewood crackling. Tien turned away, silently wiping away her tears. When he saw the children still standing there, their hands tightly holding the empty plastic box, their eyes waiting, he stood up again. "We have to cook quickly. The children are very hungry," he said hoarsely, turning to look at Tien, who was carefully washing the rice a second time because the stream water was too murky. Jack's mother then got out of the car, carrying a basket full of vegetables and cakes that had been prepared from the lowlands. Her face froze when she saw the scene before her eyes. After a long while, she exclaimed, "Oh my God, why are the children so skinny? Some of them are even younger than our son Tien when he was 3 years old." She turned away to wipe her tears, then quietly rolled up her sleeves, and went into the kitchen to help light the fire. Under the stove, the wood was damp and the smoke was spicy, but no one complained. Uncle Hung, an experienced and quiet man, had also quietly put the big pot on the second stove. He didn't say much, just focused on cutting the meat, adding spices to the pumpkin soup. The children here lack nutrition. They need to cook with meat and vegetables. Eating like that will give them strength. There was no music, no laughter, only the sound of ladles hitting the pot, the sound of firewood cracking, and the sound of wind whistling through the mountain crevices. But in that moment, in the middle of the poor kitchen, 4 people from 3 generations were united for one reason: to help the children not go to bed with an empty stomach. Tien was stir-frying vegetables and was silent when she saw the child sitting by the window waiting. He didn't say anything, just hugged the old plastic box with a cracked lid, waiting for his food. "Mom, why are the children so used to being hungry?" she asked softly. Jack's mother looked at her, then turned away, not answering. because she was also choking up, not wanting to cry. When the first spoonfuls of rice were scooped out, the children began to gather around, their eyes wide open, unblinking, following Jack and Tien's every move as if afraid their portion would be forgotten. Tien knelt down to the children's level, gently scooping spoonfuls of white rice into the box. Each portion was scooped just enough. With a little vegetable and a tablespoon of meat, she tried to spread it evenly, even though she knew that the meat was only enough for half a meal. Tien paused when she saw that small hand covered in mud. Her thin wrist, with visible blue veins, she scooped up a fuller portion of rice, and softly said, "Eat more, my child." The little girl looked up at Tien, didn't say anything, just nodded slightly, then hugged the lunchbox tightly to her chest as if afraid someone would take it away. A little boy stood in front of Jack, skinny, his faded shirt torn at the shoulders, his stomach flat. But what made Jack speechless was that the baby's lunchbox was just a can of milk with the lid cut off, rusty all over the edges. Jack raised his head to look at Tien. His throat choked up. "I didn't expect." Uncle Hung then quietly walked over, put his hand on Jack's shoulder. "No one expected it, but at least, today, their rations are no longer water and forest leaves." Jack's mother brought portions to the children who were too weak to stand up. She sat down, feeding rice to a little girl with a fever lying in her sister's arms. Her face softened, but her eyes were red. "Eat, child, eat to regain your strength. Has your mother not come back from the field yet?" The children sat around, eating in silence. No one laughed, no one spoke loudly, only the sound of spoons hitting the bottom of the box. A sound that was both small, and moved the whole heart. The sun gradually set behind the distant mountains, the last light of the day falling gently on the faces of the children who had filled their stomachs after a warm meal. A few children dozed off in each other's arms, their mouths still stained with rice, as if they did not dare to wake up for fear that the dream they had just had was too fragile. Jack sat silently on the doorstep, his eyes red, his hands still stained with the smell of smoke and tears. Tien nestled next to him, saying nothing, just leaning lightly on his shoulder, because both of them knew that this moment would forever remain in their memories. Without words, Jack's mother was washing the pot behind the stove, slowly, carefully, as if it was the last thing she could do to prolong this warm moment for the children. Uncle Hung lit the fire again, not saying a word, just looking towards the purple sky, his eyes heavy. In that quiet space, only the crackling sound of firewood and the wind blowing through the cliffs remained. But it was in that silence that people could hear one thing most clearly, the voice of the heart. "We know we can't change the lives of all the children here. But if just this one meal helps them sleep better for one night, then that's enough." End of video message. If you're watching this far, please don't leave in silence. Share this video, so that one more person knows. One more heart is touched. Because sometimes, a small act can save a hungry heart. In a place where there is nothing to give, people still show kindness to each other.
Mặt trời dần hạ sông nhắm dạng núi mờ xa, ánh sáng cuối ngày rơi nhẹ trên khuôn mặt những đứa trẻ đã no bụng sau bữa ăn ấm áp. Một vài em nhỏ ngủ gật trong lòng mẹ, miệng vẫn còn lấm lên cơm, như thể không dám tỉnh dậy vì sợ giấc mơ vừa có quá dữ